Megalithomaniacs, myself and JJ have finally made it to Phaistos here in ancient Megalonissos or Crete. 949 days ago we had this crazy synchronicity which involved finding these strange artifacts such as this one. We found like 3 of them in this synchronistic story, which I'll explain to you in more detail when we get in the site, and realized we had to get to this site. It's taken us nearly 950 days to get here, but anyway, we made it. There's something strange going on here already. Let's get in and see what we find. So just on the way up here, just before we even get to the visitor center, you can see ruins just down by the side there, part of the Phaistos Palace, which originally dates back to 4000 BC as the earliest phase. This is the beautiful valley it overlooks. So we've just arrived and come into the city of Phaistos, the palace here especially, but this area was actually inhabited since about 4000 BC, and it really started construction of what we see here about 2000 BC to 1700 BC. And we're in the higher part of the site now, the upper court, which is one of 3 courts on the west wing of the palace. It has numerous features we're going to have a look at as we walk around, but we're really here because we had this very strange synchronicity in Greece like 949 days ago. We wanted to check this out. We feel like we've got some almost like possible past life connection or something to this particular site. So this is actually where the Phaistos Disc was discovered, actually in this temple. Now, the thing about the Phaistos Disc, it dates to 1550 BC at least. It's about 15 centimeters wide, a little bit bigger than like a CD or a DVD, and both sides of it have inscribed characters sort of going around in a spiral into the center. There's been a lot of debate about this because it was found in 1908. Some people say it's a hoax, but it was a very specific way of baking the clay, like a ceramic, so it kind of preserved itself. It's actually on display in the Heracleum Museum. We're going to go and obviously have a look at it. This here, just within this actual temple, is where it was discovered. So could there be something significant about this particular spot? Could it be one of the oldest spots on the site? Could it be older than 1550 BC? And what is really said on it? This is something that people like Alan Butler, various archaeologists, and more recently Jj Ainsworth, who's with me on this trip, is going to be looking at this in more detail to see if we can decode some of what it means. Some people suggest it's like a goddess kind of incantation to Astara and to other kind of mother goddesses. Others say it's like a calendrical system based on a 366-day calendar, and others say it has potentially Egyptian connections with the hieroglyphic style kind of stamps on it. So whatever it is one of the big mysteries of the ancient world, and it was in this exact spot where it was found. And here we can actually see some examples of pretty massive megalithic blocks. This is what's called the Kings Megaron, one of the royal apartments. It's thought that this was, used for the royalty, but it's very similar to the one at Knossos, apparently. So you can see some of the precision stonework at the back there. It's got really acoustic properties here as well. And all the way around there. And we've got like the more rough-hewn walls that make up the back, and they're probably hidden. But these pieces here are kind of very, very well preserved, which we know goes back to the Neolithic, to 4000 BC. But what was here then, we don't know. Although we know that the whole of Phaistos was being destroyed in earthquakes and built over, much like Knossos and other sites in ancient Megalonissos or Crete. So we can see a couple of pillars, whether they're reconstructed, I don't know. This is the Queens Megaron, apparently, one of the royal apartments. And supposedly these slabs on the base are made of gypsum with plaster and other things found here. There's also some cult symbols of a double axe and a kind of sacred knot that were found on some libation vessels, which we'll show you in the video here. But look, this is actually quite a sacred part of the site, supposedly the Queens Megaron. So just above the spot where the Phaistos Disc was found, we find quite large megalithic blocks making up the kind of foundation. We have ashlar masonry going along here. We find this at many sites, obviously on the mainland Greece as well, going back to Minoan, Mycenaean kind of times. But you know, the fact is this place is potentially older. Look, we've got this as well, like a well. This is a pretty kind of amazing place actually. These look like concrete reconstructions, but look, you've got these sort of sacred bowls, like libation bowls, or they were used for collecting water. It's a bit wet at the moment, it's been raining, and then you've got like a kind of water channel going down here, and then we head out now kind of onto the main plaza, and you can see that clearly from the air. I'll show you some images that we got of the site. So this is the north wing. This is kind of like the main plaza of the site. It's got an information board here. I'll show you some images of this and all the information on this. It would have been like almost like buildings here with the royal area behind. And just behind that again is where we've just been, where the Phaistos Disc was uncovered. Now these are amazing, these giant kind of vases of the royalty. But in here is where they kept the archives. So we're just inside the main plaza, the north wing. These are like what are called the West magazines. And these areas here where I'm walking through now, this was where all the archives of ancient Megalonissos or Crete were kept. Almost like the Hall of Records of ancient Crete. And it was here where there were thousands of these clay seals with imprint in a very strange language, which ended up being discovered as Linear A and Linear B, amongst others, were kind of found in this particular area called the West Magazines of the main North Court. And so this was really more than just a palace. This was like an archive, a library, probably a community kind of ceremonial area. And so this Phaistos Disc may have been the kind of key to their civilization, the kind of code to unlock the pure languages of Linear A and Linear B. So JJ is just pointing out to me that all these symbols carved on these stones are present on the Phaistos Disc. All the ones we see here, amongst others. There are more all over the place. Have a quick look in here. That's where JJ is. Like this one here. This one. So JJ's just been saying this is like similar to something at Winnemucca as well, and some kind of goddess symbol before the patriarchal society kind of took over, which was definitely there definitely was that kind of thing in prehistory here in Crete and Greece. There's this symbol here as well. There's more here and here. Everywhere you look, there's all these symbols, and many of them are actually on the Phaistos Disc, according to JJ. So this is mind-blowing. So what is going on here? What does this mean? Is this like language carved into the site and just happened to be recorded onto the disc? And now we're heading back out into the main kind of plaza area. But also, look, just look at this. See these strange symbols just carved into the rock here. So each room may have been for a particular kind of archive. That almost looks like keystone cuts in that stone as well. That's very interesting. We do find those in Greece. We saw that Herion of Argos amongst other sites. But yeah, this is becoming very, very intriguing, this place. Look at these. There's all these strange carved blocks, bowls. It almost looks like a giant's footprint. Some kind of symbol carved on there as well. And look at these size of these blocks coming down the side here. certainly like their giant pots. Look at that serpent carved around that one as well. That is absolutely amazing. So this is actually a room with a locked door, but you can see why. It's got loads of these giant pots in it with all these beautiful paintwork on it. You can actually see that there, look, you see that? It's actually just here, but they've kind of locked this up. It's like a bit of a kind of museum storeroom. More over there. You can see that one there. They go all the way back, there's a whole bunch of them. Very interesting. Secret little room here at Phaistos. And that is a fine example of one of the pots. Look at that. That's been obviously reconstructed. But yeah, that is some really good work there. Oh, you can see the details on it. Almost like a rope going around it. Down here though, you've got these huge kind of perfectly cut megalithic slabs with kind of indentations on it. So this is the main kind of plaza, and then if we come over to the eastern, this is called the East Wing. This area here, you actually got like a sort of rocky outcrop there that's got seats and everything carved out of it. This is supposedly where miniature versions of the royal apartments were kind of uncovered, but what was found in here, which is really interesting, was this lustral basin. Now this is you know, one of the kind of suggestions was like a libation area, but look, if you look at the rocks behind that there, actually this is like similar to what you find up at, you know, Nix Hill up in Athens, where they've carved everything out of solid bedrock. Let me just zoom in on that a little bit, because you have to see that. Look, you can see that all this stone here, this like natural part of rocky outcrop, has like seats carved in it. This is like what you find in Sacsayhuaman in Peru. This is what you find all over Sardinia, different parts of the Mediterranean. But to find it here suggests this could be by far the oldest part of the site. If we zoom in a bit further, you can see right in there, there's like a little kind of channel carved out of it with a seat. But even more, there's more as you go over there. It's very, very interesting. Can't really see it all from me. You can't really go in there, unfortunately. But I guarantee there's more carved into the bedrock all around that area. It's really quite a small area. It's not that big an area, so that might be the only part that's actually cut out of solid rock. But it's very interesting nonetheless, suggesting they were doing that here in Mycenaean and Minoan parts of Megalonissos, or ancient Crete. We also have a giant block there with a hole carved in it. It's just like a giant hole just carved out in the middle of this kind of area, the kind of main sort of plaza area. Now, was that to place something extremely interesting like an omphalos stone, or was that just to kind of place a vase or a pillar? It's unknown, but it's always good to discuss and speculate. Yeah, I mean, imagine what this would have looked like. That's one of the reasons I kind of like the fact that Arthur Evans, the excavator at Knossos, actually recreated part of Knossos, because it gives you just a sense of what it would have been like. Now, this is an interesting greenstone. This looks like kind of serpentine or something similar. That is very, very beautiful. It's almost like the same kind of stone you see at Hattusa, the Hittite site in ancient Anatolia or Turkey. So these are more of the kind of archive rooms. There's an interesting stone down there. So where all the archives, there's like a seating area. Is that where people would kind of do their kind of research? Got a huge kind of square block here. A well, it's almost got cut marks in it. A well here. There's many of these actually. Can't see how far that goes down, it's very dark. Almost like a little omphalos stone here. That is interesting. So this is the main plaza. Officially it's called the Great Court or the Central Court, and all Minoan palaces were said to have these kind of areas. There's, on the opposite side there, we saw the seated area, which is next to the archive area. We saw the rocky outcrop with the kind of carvings into it and the channels cut through it, which is thought to be potentially a libation or ceremonial spot, which could be super ancient in my opinion. And there's more, actually, there's more structures as you go down the side of this particular site. You actually see it if you look at it from the air. And so it's a beautiful view up here. It's like the Argolid Plain in Greece, where we have the Hellinikon Pyramid and Mycenae and so forth. It's got this kind of very similar vibe to it when you can see out to the sea in one direction there. So it would have been a port as well. We must remember that Phaistos was like an ancient port. I must remember that the palace began being constructed 4,000 years ago, so 1900 BC. But even 2,000 years before that, 6,000 years ago, there was things going on here on this particular sacred hill. This is what looks like some kind of water channel, kind of coming into the, going out from the main kind of great court. And look at these giant blocks that make up the kind of top of it. These are really impressive. These are like kind of lintels kind of being placed. So there was all sorts of water being moved through here. There is evidence of some kind of irrigation system and watering system, and you can actually see that over there as well. Further in the distance, there's more of these blocks making up these kind of lintels over these channels. Just next to this kind of channel, you've got this giant block here as well, sort of megalithic chunk, and these ones here, so a few, definitely like a few tons each. And there's the kind of megalithic kind of lintels covering up the kind of water channel, which would go into the site, maybe to a sacred water spot. And maybe, you know, this could be evidence that they were actually working with the energies, because they were channeling water through specific spots of this ancient temple. So just behind me is the magazine of the giant Pythio, which is basically the giant storage jars, which are beautifully decorated in a very sacred manner. And these were part of the ancient palace going back to at least 1900 BC. And there were many of these, not just these two that are left here. There were hundreds of them all kind of around this particular area near the west wing. So these steps are called the propylaea, which would have marked the entrance to the new temple in around 1700 BC. So this whole area behind me is the kind of theatre area of Phaistos, where performances and seating and everything else would take place. A few other interesting features here. The steps are very impressive, considering this is like nearly 4,000 years old, but you can just see them as we walk along. You'll see behind me, we had a little walk around it so you can see more details. But yeah, there's megalithic elements here. There's all these carved stones that appear to have the Phaistos Disc symbols on them, and there's something kind of strange and mystical I like about this spot. So this is one of several kalurs or rings. Now these were used to place offerings, and whether it was offerings to the king or queen or whether it was offerings to the gods is unclear. This is actually a well, a Hellenistic well. It's built much later, about 300 or 400 BC. You can see that there. And here's another one of these kalurs. Actually, this is probably part of one here as well, with a stepway coming up to like the theatrical sacred precinct. And here's the other one. Similar ones are being found at the Palace of Malia, And it's thought that the offerings and, you know, from the shrines, it's thought that offerings were placed in these, and these were like part of the processional causeway, which you can see here. So I just walk down, and this one here, part of the theatrical aspect of the site as well. But these are really big, so I wonder what was found in them. But yeah, kalurs basically means ring or rings, and yeah, regular offerings were made. So who collected the offerings, we don't know. Was it the gods, or was it the people who were like, you know, entrepreneurs? A lot of offerings can be certainly thrown in there. So this area here is called the tripartite shrine. They used to bake sacred bread here as offerings. This actually looks like this piece of the bedrock may have been the altar of sacrifice and offerings of ashes and bones, because this is over to the north. The rest of the this part of the kind of sacred precinct is just here. JJ's down there now. So here we have another view of the sacred precinct, and also I believe this part here, which is rough hewn out of solid bedrock, was where the ashes and bones were found. And this is like, you know, potentially part of the older site here. So I've just spotted this giant kind of very red stone. I mean, it's a bit like the green stone we saw in the site as well. So they've got this kind of going on here. They've got these random bits, probably not random of course, of these kind of sacred, almost like, are these meteorites? Are these like brought in from a completely different area? Are they part of the older part of the temple? What is going on here? We're just leaving Phaistos. This is a very beautiful, impressive site. We followed synchronicities to come here. We've shown you as much as we can. We're going to continue our journey around Megalonissos, or ancient Crete. And we hope you enjoyed our quick visit here, a quick look around to appreciate what's going on here. And we'll see you next time, Megalithomaniacs.